The phone rang at 3:42 a.m. In my 65 years of life, I knew that nothing good ever came from a call at this hour. But when I heard what the voice on the other end said, my entire world shattered and rebuilt itself in the same breath. "Mr. Harrison, this is about your daughter Sarah. She's alive, and she's asking for you." But that was impossible, because I buried my daughter 29 years ago. What happened next will make you question everything you think you know about loss, memory, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his child. Stay until the end, because this story takes turns you won't see coming. If you love true stories about family, redemption, and second chances, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Robert Harrison. I'm 65 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb of Seattle with my wife, Elizabeth. We've been married for 44 years, and for 29 of those years, we've carried a weight that never truly leaves you. The weight of a missing child. When the phone rang that October morning, Elizabeth was already stirring beside me. After decades of marriage, she'd developed the same instinct I had. Calls at this hour meant emergency, death, crisis. Never good news. I grabbed the phone on the second ring. "Hello? Oh?" Static. Then a woman's voice, clear and professional, but with an undertone of urgency that made my chest tighten. "Is this Robert Harrison speaking?" "Yes." "Who is this?" "Mr. Harrison, my name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm a psychiatric specialist at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. I'm calling about your daughter, Sarah." The room seemed to tilt. I sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, my free hand gripping the mattress. "I don't understand," I said slowly. "My daughter died 29 years ago." There was a brief pause. I could hear papers shuffling, someone speaking quietly in the background. "Mr. Harrison, I understand this must be incredibly shocking, but we have a woman here who was brought in 3 days ago following a severe psychiatric episode. She has identification documents, and she's been telling us repeatedly that she's Sarah Harrison, that she's your daughter." "That's impossible," I said, my voice flat and mechanical. "We buried her in 1995. There were remains, DNA evidence. We had a funeral." "Sir, I need to tell you something very specific. The woman here told us that when she was 4 years old, you built her a playhouse in your backyard. But you were terrified of using the nail gun, so she had to hand you each nail one by one, and she kept count. She said there were 247 nails, and you both celebrated when you finished." My blood ran cold. The playhouse. The nail count. That was our private memory. Sarah had been obsessed with numbers even as a tiny child. She'd insisted on counting every single nail, making a game of it. We'd never told anyone about that. It wasn't any police report. Not even Elizabeth knew the exact number. She'd been inside making lunch that day. 247 nails. "Where is she?" My voice cracked. "Where exactly is she right now?" "Harborview Medical Center, Psychiatric Unit, 4th floor." "Mr. Harrison, I should tell you that she's stable but fragile. She's been experiencing what we believe are recovered memories after living under a completely different identity for almost 3 decades. This is... well, it's an extraordinary case." I looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. "I'm coming now. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Mr. Harrison, perhaps you should wait until..." I hung up. Elizabeth was sitting up now, her face pale in the dim light from the hallway. "Robert, what's happened? Who was that?" "Someone says they found Sarah," I whispered. "And they knew about the playhouse. They knew about the 247 nails." Elizabeth's hand flew to her mouth. "We'd had false leads before. Twice in the first 5 years after Sarah disappeared, we'd gotten calls from people claiming to have information. Both times, they'd been scammers trying to extract money from grieving parents. We'd learned to protect ourselves, to not hope too easily. But the playhouse, the nails, that was different. "I'm coming with you," Elizabeth said, already reaching for her clothes. "No." "Hey." I said it gently but firmly. "Let me see first. Let me make sure. If it's real." I couldn't finish the sentence. If it's real, then everything we thought we knew is a lie. She understood. After 44 years together, she always understood. Seattle at 4 a.m. is a different city. Empty streets, occasional delivery trucks. The strange orange glow of streetlights reflected on wet pavement. It had been raining earlier, typical for October. I drove on autopilot, my mind spinning through memories I'd locked away in boxes, labeled too painful to touch. Sarah had been 19 when she vanished. November 8, 1994, Tart. She'd been a sophomore at the University of Washington, studying mathematics. Brilliant, focused, with that same obsessive attention to detail she'd had as a child counting nails. She'd gone to a concert with friends, some alternative band at a venue in Pioneer Square. She'd called us around 11 p.m. to say she was getting a ride home with a friend. That was the last time we ever heard her voice. The friend later told police that Sarah had decided to walk to get some air. She'd been fighting with her boyfriend that week and wanted time to think. The friend had offered to go with her, but Sarah had insisted she was fine. She'd walked out of that venue alone and vanished into the Seattle night. For years, we searched. Posters on every street corner. Interviews with local news. A private investigator who took most of our savings and delivered nothing but dead ends. Elizabeth stopped teaching. I nearly lost my job as an engineer because I couldn't focus on anything except finding our daughter. Then, in 1998, hikers found remains in the Cascade foothills. Female, approximately 19 to 22 years old. Body had been there for several years. Dental records were inconclusive due to damage, but there was other evidence. A bracelet that looked like one Sarah wore. Fragments of clothing in colors she favored. Hair samples that were close enough to be considered a match with 1990s technology. The forensic team said they were 75% certain it was Sarah. 75% had been enough to bury her. Enough to try to move on. Enough to slowly, painfully, build a new version of our lives around the Sarah-shaped hole that would never heal. But some part of me had always wondered about that 25% uncertainty. Harborview Medical Center loomed against the pre-dawn sky, all concrete and glass, and the sterile promise of emergency medicine. I'd driven past it countless times and never really seen it. Now it felt like the most important building in the world. I found parking in the nearly empty garage and made my way to the main entrance. The night receptionist directed me to the 4th floor, psychiatric unit. She gave me a visitor's badge without asking questions, though she must have seen the desperation on my face. Dr. Sarah Mitchell met me at the elevator. She was younger than I'd expected from her voice, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and the sort of calm competence that comes from years of dealing with crisis. "Mr. Harrison, thank you for coming so quickly." She shook my hand. "I want to prepare you before you see her. This is going to be difficult." "Just tell me," I said. "Tell me everything." We walked through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and floor wax. Dr. Mitchell spoke in a low, steady voice. "The woman we have here has been living under the name Amanda Pierce for the past 29 years. She has a complete life history as Amanda. Complete documentation, social security number, work history, everything. She's been working as a bookkeeper for various companies in the Seattle area. She's lived alone, kept mostly to herself. How is that possible? We're still piecing that together. 4 days ago, she saw a post on social media. It was one of those cold cases awareness pages, and they'd shared Sarah Harrison's missing person case. When Amanda saw the photo of Sarah, something in her mind fractured. She had what we call a dissociative break, a complete collapse of her constructed identity. We stopped outside a door marked 4B12. She's been having flashbacks, memories of a childhood that doesn't match Amanda Pierce's documented history. A house in North Seattle with a red door. A mother who made blueberry pancakes every Sunday. A father who built her a playhouse and let her count the nails. Dr. Mitchell paused. A silver bracelet with tiny stars that she got for her 16th birthday. My breath caught. The bracelet. The one we'd buried with those remains. Mr. Harrison, you need to understand something. Sarah, if this is Sarah, has been severely traumatized. She spent nearly 3 decades as someone else. The integration process, bringing these two identities together, it's going to be long and painful. She may never fully be the girl you lost. I don't care who she had to become to survive, I said. If there's any chance this is my daughter, I need to see her. Dr. Mitchell nodded and opened the door. The room was small. Bed, chair, window with blinds half drawn against the coming dawn. A woman sat in the chair, backlit by the gray light, so I couldn't see her clearly at first. She stood when I entered. Slowly, like she wasn't sure her legs would hold her. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. She was older, of course. She'd be 48 now, not 19. Her hair was different. Shorter, darker than Sarah's had been. She was thin. Too thin, with lines on her face that spoke of years of stress and survival. She wore hospital-issued clothes, gray sweatpants and a blue t-shirt, and stood with her shoulders hunched like she was trying to disappear. But her eyes, God, her eyes were Sarah's eyes. The same unusual shade of brown with flecks of gold that changed in different light. The same intense, analytical way of looking at the world, like she was always calculating, always counting something invisible. Dad? The word hit me like a physical blow. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times in the years after she disappeared. In my imagination, I'd always been strong, stoic, the rock she could lean on. Instead, I stood there shaking, tears streaming down my face, unable to make my voice work. She took a hesitant step forward. I don't remember everything yet. The doctors say it's going to take time. But I remember the playhouse. I remember you were so scared of that nail gun that your hands shook. I remember counting each nail because I thought if I kept count, it would keep you safe. 247 nails. We celebrated with ice cream after. Mint chocolate chip, I whispered. Your favorite. My favorite, she echoed, and something in her expression cracked open. I've been Amanda for so long. I have memories of being Amanda. They feel real. But when I saw that photo, when I saw my face, her face, Sarah's face, it was like waking up from a 29-year dream. Or nightmare. I'm not sure which. I closed the distance between us and pulled her into my arms. She was stiff at first, uncertain, then she collapsed against me like all her strings had been cut. She smelled wrong, not like my daughter. Not like the girl who wore strawberry shampoo and too much vanilla body spray. She smelled like hospital soap and fear. But when I closed my eyes, I could feel the shape of her. The way her head fit against my shoulder, even though she'd grown taller. The way she'd always been tall had towered over Elizabeth by age 16. You're alive, I whispered into her hair. You're alive. Nothing else mattered. We stood there for a long time. Eventually we sat, her in the chair, me perched on the edge of the hospital bed. And slowly, haltingly, She began to tell me what she remembered. The night she disappeared, she'd left the concert angry. Fighting with her boyfriend had put her in a dark mood. She'd wanted to walk, to clear her head. Someone had approached her. A woman, friendly, concerned, asked if she was okay, offered her a ride, said it wasn't safe for a young woman to be walking alone this late. Everything after that was fragments, broken pieces of memory that didn't connect properly. There had been a van, other people, a building that might have been a warehouse. Fear, confusion, pain, awe. Then nothing. Then Amanda. Amanda Pierce had appeared in the system with a full identity in 1995. .car. Birth certificate, social security card, school records. All fabricated, but so thoroughly done that they'd passed every check for 3 decades. Amanda had a job, an apartment, a life. She paid her taxes. She had a library card. She existed. But Amanda didn't remember being a child. Didn't remember parents or siblings or a hometown. Whenever people asked, she'd say she'd had a difficult childhood and preferred not to talk about it. Most people respected that. Those who didn't eventually stopped asking. For 29 years, Amanda had lived a quiet, unremarkable life. Working, reading, thought, existing but not really living. Always with this sense that something was missing. Something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on what. Until she saw the photo. "I lost time," she said. "After I saw that post. I lost 3 entire days. I don't remember anything except fragments. Screaming, people trying to calm me down, being brought here." She looked at me with those familiar eyes. "The doctors say I'm Sarah. But I remember being Amanda too. How can I be both? How can I be both? How can both of these lives be real?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But we'll figure it out together. You are not alone anymore." The DNA test was administered the next day. A simple cheek swab that would take 2 weeks to process. 2 weeks that felt like 2 years. But even before the results came back, more pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. The police reopened Sarah's case immediately. Detective Maria Gonzalez, who'd been a rookie when Sarah first disappeared and had never forgotten the case, took the lead. She started with the remains we'd buried in 1998. DNA technology had advanced significantly since then. They were able to extract better samples and run them through updated databases. Within a week, they had an answer. The girl in Sarah's grave was named Bethany Chen. She'd disappeared from Portland in 1996, 2 years after Sarah vanished. Her family had never stopped searching for her either. We believe Detective Gonzalez told us in a quiet conference room at the police station that Sarah was taken by a trafficking ring that operated throughout the Pacific Northwest in the 1990s. We've been aware of this organization for years, but most of the original members are dead or in prison for unrelated crimes. "For unrelated crimes!" "Trafficking," Elizabeth whispered. She'd come to Seattle the day after I called her, and she hadn't left Sarah's side since. Yes, they targeted young women, primarily college-aged. They had an elaborate system for creating new identities, placing their victims in situations where they'd be unlikely to seek help or run away. "Mind control," I said. "That's what you're describing. Brainwashing." "In essence, yes. Through a combination of drugs, psychological manipulation, and trauma, they were able to create compliant victims who believed they were someone else entirely. When the organization fell apart in the late 90s, many of the victims were simply abandoned, left with their fabricated identities and no memory of their real life. "How many?" Sarah's voice was quiet. "How many of us were there?" Detective Gonzalez hesitated. We've identified at least 15 women so far who may have been victims of this ring, all living under false identities, all with suppressed memories of their real lives. Sarah, you're the first one who's broken through. The DNA results came back 2 days later. Dr. Mitchell called me into her office to deliver the news, though we all already knew what it would say. It's a 99.9% match. Robert, Sarah is your daughter. I nodded. Couldn't speak. Just nodded while tears streamed down my face. There's something else, Dr. Mitchell said gently. In our sessions, Sarah has been recovering more memories. Not just of her childhood, but of the missing years. Some of what she's remembering is difficult. She's going to need intensive therapy for a long time. PTSD, dissociative identity disorder, complex trauma. This won't be easy. I don't care, I said. I have my daughter back. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, we'll do it. Yes, too. Sarah came home 6 weeks after that first call. Not to our house in the suburbs, but to a small apartment we helped her rent in Capitol Hill. She wasn't ready to leave the city yet. Needed to be close to her therapy team, to Dr. Mitchell, to the life she'd known as Amanda, even as she slowly integrated her identity as Sarah. We helped her furnish the apartment. Elizabeth bought dishes and soft blankets. I built her a bookshelf, joking about how I still wasn't any good with tools after all these years. She smiled at that. A small, fragile smile, but real. Our son James came to meet her. That was hard. James had been 12 when his big sister disappeared. He remembered her, but through the lens of childhood, memories filtered through years of grief and therapy. The woman he met now was a stranger who happened to share his DNA. But he tried. He showed her photos, told her about his life, his wife, his kids, her nephew and niece she'd never met. Sarah cried during that visit, mourned the decades she'd lost, the relationship they'd never had. But slowly, carefully, they began to build something new. The therapy was intense. Sarah, or rather the person who was learning to be both Sarah and Amanda, had sessions 3 times a week. Sometimes she'd call me after, shaking and exhausted. I remembered something today, she'd say. Something bad. And I'd drive over and sit with her. Not trying to fix anything, just being present. Detective Gonzalez's investigation continued. Sarah had been able to provide details that helped them identify other victims, track down surviving members of the trafficking ring. She testified in closed hearings, reliving her trauma in service of justice. After each session, she'd come out exhausted, and Elizabeth and I would take her for coffee. She'd developed a thing for coffee, needed the warmth and ritual of it. I thought telling them would make it better, she said once. I thought testifying would give me closure. Does it? I asked. I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. That was 6 months ago. Now it's April. The cherry blossoms are blooming throughout Seattle, and Sarah calls us every few days. She sounds different now, stronger, more integrated. She started using both names, Sarah Amanda, acknowledging that she's both people and neither. Something new emerging from the combination. She called yesterday to say she'd been accepted into a graduate program. Psychology. She wants to work with trauma survivors. Wants to turn her nightmare into something that might help someone else. Elizabeth and I drove to her apartment to celebrate. Sarah Amanda met us at the door, and I was struck by how different she looked. She'd gained weight, a good thing. Her hair had grown out, showed hints of the lighter color I remembered from her childhood. She wore jeans and a sweater that actually fit, and she smiled when she saw us. She'd made dinner. Chicken stir-fry, nothing fancy, but made with care. We sat at her small table, eating and talking. She told us about her program, about a support group she'd joined for survivors, about a tentative friendship she'd started with one of the other women who'd been rescued from the same trafficking ring. "I've been thinking about the playhouse," she said suddenly. "Dad, do you remember why you built it? You wanted one. You'd seen one at a friend's house and decided you needed one too. But you were terrified. Terrified of the nail gun, of heights, of doing it wrong." "I was," I admitted. "Why did you build it anyway?" I looked at her across the table, at this daughter who'd been dead and was alive, who'd been lost and was found, who'd been Sarah and Amanda and was now both, and something more. "Because you were my daughter," I said simply. "Because you wanted it, and I would have done anything for you, would have faced any fear." She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "That's good," she said, "because I think I'm going to need you to face a few more fears before we're done. This integration process, this healing, it's going to take years. There will be setbacks. There will be days when Amanda wants to disappear, back into the safe, simple life she knew. Days when Sarah feels like too much to carry. Then we'll carry it together," Elizabeth said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "However long it takes," I added. "However many fears I have to face. I'm not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere." And I meant it. We'd lost 29 years. We'd never get them back. The girl who disappeared at 19 would never return. That version of Sarah was gone, lost to time and trauma. But the woman sitting across from us, this complex, wounded, incredibly strong person who was learning to be herself, she was here. She was alive. She was our daughter. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 3 years have passed since that phone call at 3:42 a.m. Sarah Amanda graduated with her master's degree in trauma psychology last month. She started working at a nonprofit that helps trafficking survivors. She's good at it. Her own experience, as painful as it is, gives her a connection with her clients that most therapists can't match. Elizabeth and I see her twice a week for dinner. Sometimes at her place, sometimes at ours. She's slowly become comfortable in our house, though she still prefers her own apartment, her own space. James's kids call her Aunt Sarah. They don't know the full story yet. They're too young. Someday they'll learn about the years she was gone, the nightmare she survived. But for now, she's just their aunt who brings them interesting books and teaches them card tricks. The police investigation led to 3 more arrests. The trafficking ring, what was left of it, has been dismantled. 14 other women have been identified and are going through their own integration processes. Sarah Amanda has become a mentor to some of them, helping them navigate the impossible task of being 2 people at once. And the remains in Sarah's grave. We had a second funeral for Bethany Chen. Her parents came from Portland, and we stood beside them as they finally laid their real daughter to rest. There's a strange bond between us now, 2 families connected by tragedy and the cruel randomness of fate. I think about that sometime. How close we came to never knowing. If Sarah Amanda hadn't seen that social media post, if the cold case page hadn't shared her story, if she hadn't had the courage to break through 29 years of conditioning and false memories, how many other Sarahs are out there? How many other Amandas? How many people living false lives, never knowing they're someone else? It's a question that haunts me. But today, right now, I have my daughter back. Not the same person she was. Not whole. Not healed. But alive. And fighting to stay that way. That's all that matters. If this story moved you, please hit the subscribe button. We share true stories about family, survival, and second chances every week. Have you ever experienced something that completely changed how you saw the world? Share your story in the comments below. We read every single one. And remember, hope isn't foolish. Sometimes, against all odds, miracles happen. This is real. This happened. And somewhere out there, someone else might be waiting for their own 3:42 a.m. phone call. Thank you for watching.